Scarface, directed by Brian De Palma, has Hollywood star Al Pacino portray Tony Montana, a Cuban immigrant turned drug lord of Miami. This differed from Howard Hawks' 1932 original, where the story revolved around Tony Camonte, an Italian immigrant in the illegal alcohol trade. De Palma and screenwriter Oliver Stone brilliantly alter the story to fit in with the current times regarding Cuban emigration and the 1980s drug epidemic, while also retaining certain aspects of the original. Over 35 years removed from this film debuting, and it remains a cult classic and fan favorite gangster movie because of its glorification of the gangster lifestyle. Tony is an anti-hero that captivates the viewer with his hubris, quotable lines, and rags to riches story. He is also the physical embodiment of material excess, and while it is visually pleasing to the viewer, it is likely that the writers were critiquing the economic policies of the 1980s that enabled many wealthy people like Tony to get even wealthier. This scene depicts the opening of the movie where we first meet Tony. He's being interrogated by immigration officials, and the scene is filmed using a 360-degree shot that slowly moves around Tony, making the viewer feel as if they are one of the interrogators initially. However, in Kesey's article, cinematographer John A. Alonzo said, "The camera's circling suggests, in Tony's mind at least, that he is already holding court, lording it over his underlings. As the scene progresses, the main interrogator begins to throw him out, but Tony goes on a rant about communist Cuba, and the interrogator sits down while Tony is standing up. This, combined with a marginal high-angle shot showing the interrogator sitting down, hints to the viewer that Tony is more in control of the room than in the beginning."
In this scene, we see Tony's masculine pride on full display. A theme that relates to this scene is the "world is yours" theme. In Tony's mind, he can do anything if he is a rich, powerful, and feared man. It is clear from this standpoint that he views women as dispensable objects. This falls in line with the recurring themes of excess and greed that some viewers find somewhat entertaining and endearing. Shortly, we will see that Tony's treatment of Elvira follows this view that all women are status or sex symbols.
In this scene, we are introduced to Elvira. While Tony and Manny are talking with their new boss Frank, Elvira enters an elevator from the floor above, and romantic music starts playing. Tony instantly stares at her and can't focus his attention on anything else. One important note is that Elvira was above Tony, and we first get a look at her from a low-angle shot, similar to Tony's view of her. This displays her as something like a goal in which Tony wants to achieve or reach. As we know from the beach scene, Tony discusses how to be successful to Manny by stating that there are 3 crucial steps that one needs to achieve. He says that you need to get the money, the power, and then the women. Elvira symbolizes Tony's final step in his master plan. Elvira also represents Anglo-conformity because she's a German-American from Baltimore, Maryland, with blonde hair and blue eyes. This ties to Norma Bouchard's article regarding Little Caesar, where the more virtuous Joe is described as the least ethnic of the Italian characters, in full command of the English language, tall, and very Nordic-looking. Wounded and weak, Tony stands by the window admiring a blimp high up off in the distance, while ominous music plays in the background. On the blimp, we see "The World Is Yours," which has also been used in other parts of the movie. It symbolizes Tony's goal to achieve the American dream. The camera slowly pans out, darkening Tony's appearances, and most of the things surrounding him, except for Elvira, who is on the floor above wearing all white. The camera pan makes Tony appear smaller, which in turn also means that he has less power. Tony is ultimately fading away at this point in the film. He has passed his breaking point and will inevitably reach his ultimate defeat.
Tony seems to be talking to the audience in many ways in this scene. The viewers can identify with the patrons at the restaurant who are staring at Tony and love to hate him. We know that Tony's lifestyle and actions are inherently evil, but we were entertained by it and can't look away. This has been a recurring topic regarding Mafia movies throughout the course. Montana tells the restaurant patrons that they have no guts to be what they want to be and therefore need him so they can point their fucking fingers and say, "That's the bad guy." He goes on to explain that he always tells the truth, even when he lies. Tony makes it clear that he is not hiding anything about his character throughout the course of the movie.
This scene towards the end of the film depicts Tony's world crashing down as his lust for his sister led him to murder her newlywed, his best friend Manny. As he continues to snort cocaine, Gina appears. Almost immediately after we see Gina, the same song used when Elvira and Gina are seen by Tony starts to play, perhaps representing the love he feels every time he sees them. Tony's love and attraction to his sister is incorporated in both Scarface movies. However, the 1932 original relies on more implicit cues due to the more socially conservative nature of the times. However, the remake alters the side plot by having Gina try to avenge her husband's death and attack Tony. While she unfortunately meets her end within seconds of the attack, it can be noted this is a rare implementation of a female rebuking the powerful man that usually dominates everyone in the typical gangster film. Here in the final scene of Scarface, we hear the famous "say hello to my little friend" quote, and as the gunfight ensues, there's an obvious low-angle shot for Tony shooting down and a high-angle shot for the hitman down below. This helps make Tony look like a god amongst men, along with the fact that he sustains numerous bullets to almost no effect. Tony eventually meets his end by getting shot by the man in the sunglasses, and interestingly, Tony spreads his arms out as he falls to his death, potentially making a reference to Jesus Christ on the cross. Immediately after his death, the writer stayed on course with the original and showed an object displaying "the world is yours." This quote potentially represents the American dream, much like for F. Scott Fitzgerald's character Jay Gatsby was the green light. Tony wanted to achieve the American dream throughout this film, but his poor choices led to his eventual demise.